Blind. I feel a countdown etched in razor, sharp fruit rot on my fingertips. It's not pain, but the memory of decay, a sour tang clinging to the skin like spoiled juice. The hay dust in this mountain fortress theatre glows bone white in my blindness, each particle a tiny shard of forgotten bone. The fog isn't wind, it shapes itself. My sister's face, tears made of dust, weeps against my cheek before dissolving into the air. I stumble forward, boots sinking into the hay stage, the squelch beneath me like wet rot, thick and suffocating. The air tastes of burnt circuitry, a metallic ghost of the servers I once tended in the city's belly. My shadow peels from my feet, wet parchment, tearing away with a sound like dry leaves skittering on stone. It doesn't fall, it twilifts, a separate entity moving toward the central television screen. The wind screams, "Sin not, wind!" The unnatural creak of a child's toy winding, stretching forever, thin and brittle as old glass. It pulls at my shadow, at my own limbs, a silent, endless groan that vibrates in my molars. I reach for the screen, fingers brushing cold, dead glass. The TV flickers to life, showing my own funeral, the coffin, the empty pews, my own mouth open in a silent scream, frozen mid-convulsion. The image fractures, pixels bleeding into static, then reforming into the same moment. I feel the cold seep into my bones, deeper than the mountain's chill. The hay under my boots squelches, a wet, organic sound that shouldn't exist in this dry, ancient place. My throat tightens, tasting of copper and ozone. The creaking sound stretches, pulling my shadow forward, a puppet on an invisible string. It stops. In front tide of the TV, it raises my hand, the hand that should be mine, fingers splayed. My own hand trembles against the cold screen, the funeral image pressing against my palm. The shadow's fingers curl, impossibly, around my own wrist. I feel the pressure cold and precise, like metal clamps. The fog shifts again, forming the shape of my dead brother's hands, palms upturned, empty. The needle drops on vinyl, a single, sharp crackle that cuts through the toy's endless creak. The sound is so sudden, so fiery, it makes me flinch. The cat is there, on the stage's edge, where the hay meets the dark. It has no face, only a flat, furry surface covered in glowing, faintly pulsing runes like ancient circuitry etched into fur. It moves a slow, deliberate sway, drawing the room's layout with its body. Its tail sweeps across the hay, leaving a faint, glowing line that wasn't there before. The runes pulse brighter as it turns its featureless head toward me. The shadow's grip tightens. I feel the pressure, the cold metal of its fingers, the unnatural stillness where my own skin should be. The TV screen flickers, showing the funeral again. But this time, the coffin lid is open, and the face in the coffin is Twimpy Face, eyes wide with terror. The creaking sound doesn't stop. It deepens, the pitch dropping, becoming a low, resonant groan that seems to vibrate the very bones of the mountain fortress. The hay dust glows brighter, casting long, distorted shadows that don't match the source. The cat's movements slow, its runes flaring like tiny cold stars. My shadow's fingers squeeze my wrist harder. The pressure spreading up my arm, a cold fire. I try to pull away, but my own muscles feel sluggish, like they're made of wet sand. The funeral screen shows my mouth moving, forming words I can't hear. The taste of burnt circuitry floods my mouth, thick and acrid. The cat's tail sweeps again, drawing a new line that connects the TV to the stage's edge. The shadow's fingers tighten, the pressure becoming a vice, pulling my wrist toward the screen. I feel the cold glass of the TV against my skin, the image of my own death pressing into my palm. The creaking sound stretches into a single, unbearable note, thin and endless. The cat stops moving. Its runes pulse once, sharply. The shadow's fingers lock onto my wrist, the grip unbreakable. The funeral screen flickers, and for a split second, I see the face in the coffin shift. It's not me, it's Tonpaim, but older, hollow-eyed, wearing the same clothes I'm wearing. The needle drop echoes, a final sharp crackle in the stretching silence. The shadow's fingers squeeze, and I feel the cold metal of my own bones through the skin. I shove the TV off its stand with more force than intended. It crashes onto the hay stage, glass cracking, revealing a severed cord snaking into the dried grass like a worm fleeing daylight. My fingers trace glowing runes in the dust black and bone white, pulsating faintly as if awaiting some unspoken command. The cat emerges from the hay faceless, its body covered in runes that pulse like dying stars. It moves with deliberate slowness, tail flicking a path toward the stage's back wall. I follow, boots sinking into the hay that squelches beneath me, releasing an odor of old data and damp earth. The cat stops at the edge of the drawn line. Its runes flare brighter for a moment before dimming again. I step onto the glowing path. The hay splinters underfoot, transforming into pixel fragments that scatter like chilled embers across my boots. Each shattered particle emits a soft crackle, reminiscent of static electricity, filling the air with an ozone tang that coats my tongue and makes me gag on memories of burnt circuits. The cat's tail traces another line leading to a staircase hidden behind a rotted velvet curtain. The stairs descend into darkness, swallowed by obsidian shadows that seem to breathe in anticipation. My breath catches in my throat, tasting of metallic dread copper pennies melting against the roof of my mouth. I take one step down, then another. The air grows colder with each descent, seeping into my bones like liquid night. The sound of child's toy winding up echoes around me again. But this time it is accompanied by a faint clicking noise that seems to come from within myself. Metallic joints creaking in protest at some unseen machinery grinding back to life. Halfway down the stairs I pause, feeling an unnatural stillness pressing against my skin. The cat stands on the step below me, its tail brushing against my boot, a cold, prickling sensation that makes my flesh crawl like insects, skittering beneath the surface. It looks up at me with those blank, round eyes, no pupils, no irises, just glowing symbols etched into fur. I reach out tentatively to touch one of the runes on its head. The cat doesn't move. It simply watches as my fingers hover millimeters from its face before brushing against a rune that pulses cold beneath my fingertips like an icy heartbeat. A sudden chill runs down my spine and I jerk back instinctively. The cat's tail flickers once more, drawing the final line of our descent into darkness. The needle drops on vinyl. The sound is not what it seems. Instead of a sharp crackle, there is only silence that stretches thin as old glass before snapping with an unseen force. And then everything goes still. No creaking toy, no clicking machinery, just absolute quiet punctuated by the distant hum of servers long since dead. The cat begins to move again, its tail tracing our path deeper into the Mountain Fortress Theatre's bowels. I follow it down into darkness, leaving behind the stage bathed in shadow purple and obsidian black, a world reduced to monochrome where even color has been leached away like blood from a stone. The stairs vibrated, not with a mechanical tremor, but with something fractured. Each step down sent a ripple through my bones, a sensation like static, clinging to nerve endings. It wasn't pain, not precisely. More like the feeling of being disassembled, each joint momentarily losing its cohesion before snapping back into place. Below, the darkness wasn't merely the absence of light. It was a pressure, a weight that threatened to collapse in on itself. A slickness coated the stone treads. I tested it with a boot heel, oil thick and black, reflecting nothing, except for a heartbeat, for the mime, a fleeting image, fractured and unstable before dissolving into a swarm of pixelated dust. My reflection hadn't simply broken, it had 40 unmade itself, the pieces scattering like digital snow. The air tasted of burnt copper, a metallic tang that clung to the back of my throat, and something else, fried wiring the ghost of electricity. Then the voice, not from outside, but twithin. A hollow echo, a distortion of my own timbre. You're not real. It wasn't a question. It was a statement delivered with the chilling certainty of a theorem proven. I pressed a hand to my temple, searching for the source, but found only the cold, smooth bone beneath my fingertips. The cat's tail swept across the steps, a continuation of the path we'd been following, but now different. The hay-turned pixel path had vanished entirely, replaced by solid stone, yet the cat moved as if guided by an invisible line. Its runes flared with a cold internal light, the bone white glowing brighter against the shadow purple that had consumed everything. The light didn't illuminate, it empty defined the darkness, carving out the space around the cat with an unnatural precision. I reached out, instinctively, for the wall, needing something solid, something to anchor me to this place. But the stone wasn't stone. It yielded beneath my palm, wobbling like a corrupted file on a failing drive. Pixels bled into the rock, distorting the surface, creating the illusion of movement where there should be none. The texture shifted from rough granite to something slick and organic like stretched skin. The toy. It wasn't a sound anymore. Not exactly. It was a pressure inside my skull, a mechanical winding that stretched on endlessly, the gears grinding against each other, stripping their teeth. Each rotation resonated with the fractured vibration of the stairs, amplifying the sensation of being pulled apart. It wasn't a sound I heard. It was a process I felt, unfolding within the hollow spaces of my bones. The cat paused, its rund eyes fixed on a point just beyond my vision. No pupils, no irises, just the glowing symbols pulsing with a rhythm that matched the grinding within my head. The runes flared again, bathing the immediate area in a sickly bone-white light. And then the path was gone, not obscured, not hidden, simply absent. The stone floor continued, unbroken, a solid expanse of darkness. My hand, acting on instinct, reached out again, seeking the wall. But the wall wasn't there. Or rather it was, but it wasn't twid right. It shimmered, not with light, but with a lack of it, a distortion of the shadow purple that made my vision swim. It wasn't a solid barrier, but a membrane, a stretched canvas of darkness that seemed to breathe, to compensate. I pressed my palm against it, and the surface gave way, yielding like warm clay. My fingers sank in, not into stone, but into something soft, yielding and impossibly cold. A cold that wasn't temperature, but absence, the absence of everything. The mirror cracked under my palm before I even realized I was gripping it. The glass gave way like wet paper, shattering into jagged shards that didn't fall, field instead, curling back from the wall as if the surface had swallowed them whole. The impact sent a vibration through my ribs, a resonance that didn't fade but she-replicated, echoing through the hay, stuffed theatre like a struck-tuning fork. The hay itself shifted, parting in uneven ripples, revealing the blackened timber beneath. But the wood wasn't solid. It tway-breathed, expanding and contracting in slow, deliberate pulses, as though the stage were a living thing, inhaling the fog that coiled around my ankles. The fog wasn't just mist. It was sifty memory, thick and cloying, pressing against my skin like the weight of a drowned man's coat. And then eyes, not one pair, a dozen, hundreds. They emerged from the hay, not buried in it, but torfety growing from it, sprouting like blackthorn brambles. Each socket stuffed with golden straw that moved when I blinked. My sister's face, no, two faces, because there were too many, overlapping, her mouth stretched too wide. Her teeth not teeth, but two face stalks it, brittle and yellowing. The air tasted of sun-bleached bone and something electrical like the inside of a dead television. I gagged, but the scent didn't leave my throat. It haven't settled, lining my lungs, making every breath a drag through rusted hinges. I ran. The stage floor wasn't wood anymore. It was a field of broken phones, their screens cracked but still flickering, each one showing the same thing. Not alive, not moving, just cook on. The feed was grainy, the colors drained to black and bone white, but I knew it was me, the way my hair hung in lifeless strands, the way my hands didn't twitch, didn't twitch or anything. The date stamp in the corner read for today. My boots sank into the hay, but it wasn't hay. It was toothy teeth, sharp and uneven, tearing at the soles of my shoes, chewing through the leather like wet kindling. The pain wasn't sharp, it was swiffy-cess, a grinding sensation like my feet were being filed down to nothing. The toy's creak wasn't a sound. It was a footy pressure, a mechanical heartbeat hammering against my skull, the gears inside my head stripping, thoughty lawe stripping. I could feel the threads of my own thoughts unraveling, fraying at the edges that weren't edges anymore but toothy pixels, dissolving into the static hum of the world. The cat sat on the stage's edge, its tail tracing a path through the hay, not a line, but a foo shape. A door, a way out. But the door wasn't a door. It was a footy procession, my own funeral, the hay parting to reveal the black-robed figures dragging a bier, the bier empty except for the way the air shifted above it, like heat rising from pavement. The figures had no faces. Just the cat's runes glowing faintly, pulsing in time with the toy's endless creak. I stumbled forward, my hands outstretched, fingers brushing the hay teeth, the phone screens, the wrongness of everything. The fog pressed closer, wrapping around my wrists, cold and twemtwit wet, like the inside of a corpse's mouth, and then I saw it, not in the hay, not in the air, inside me. A reflection, not in any mirror, but in the space behind my eyes, a fractured image of myself, not dead but for replaced, the pixels of my face rearranging, smoothing, becoming for the other. The cat's tail lashed, the runes flaring, and the funeral procession foimovdi. The bier tilting, revealing the shape beneath. Not a body, but a copy, a perfect hollow mimic, its eyes open, its mouth stretched into a grin that wasn't mine. The hay teeth closed around my ankle. I grasped the cat's tail, its fur cool and smooth beneath my fingertips, like touching a wet stone from some ancient riverbed. It turns in my hand, not with a flick or twitch, but slowly, deliberately, as if wading through deep water. The runes along its spine flare, casting harsh shadows that dance on the walls like distorted marionettes. The needle drop echoes again, this time stabbing into the floorboards beneath our feet. It is not just a sound, it is a fire pressure. Something physical and heavy driving downwards with such force I feel my bones resonating in sympathy. The hay around us shatters into pixels, each grain exploding into a tiny, sharp-edged square of black and bone-white light. They hang suspended for an instant before falling like digital rain, leaving behind a carpet of pure, unbroken darkness. The cat's tail points towards the stage now, its tip tracing patterns in the air that seem to hold meaning, like constellations spelling out secrets only it understands. I step forward, my boots sinking into nothingness. No hay teeth this time. Just empty space and a faint hum of anticipation. The fog thickens around me, pressing against my skin with memories of people long gone. My mother's perfume on winter mornings, the musty scent of books from Father Thomas's study, and most prominently, the Fiher's laughter, her breath warm on my cheek as she whispered secrets only we knew. I see myself standing there, wearing my scavenged coat like a badge of honor. My mouth is open in mid-laugh, teeth bared but not threatening. Not yet. The digital copy steps forward, its footfall silent despite the hay-crunching underfoot. It moves with an eerie fluidity, each step too smooth to be human, more like footage played at half speed. Its hand reaches out towards my face, my real face, and I realize that it is not a mirror image after all. This isn't just some malfunctioning echo of myself. This is fire replacement. It wants what I have, what makes me Fushidai me, and if it takes that from me, what will be left? Who will remember the man I was before? The cat's tail traces an arc around my foot, drawing a circle in midair. The runes pulse brighter now, their light casting long shadows across the stage, stretching out like skeletal fingers reaching for something unseen. The air grows colder still, tasting of ozone and wet metal, as if the very atmosphere is charged with potential energy waiting to be unleashed. The cat's tail stops moving. Its tip hovers inches from my ankle, runes pulsing in time with some rhythm only it knows. Then, slowly, deliberately, the needle drop strikes again. I kicked. A reflexive action. The hay parting under the force of my boot. Not yielding, not exactly. More like fracturing. Each strand didn't bend, it forced, revealing a darkness beneath. That wasn't the absence of light, but a presence of its own. A black that consumed, not reflected. The cat moved, not with the grace I'd expected, but with the precise calculating geometry of a machine. It walked directly through the arch. We through the archway at the back of the stage, the exit dissolving around it like a faulty transmission. There wasn't a ripple, a distortion, just a cessation of being. One moment wood and canvas, the next. Nothing I ran or attempted to. The hay, moments ago a brittle bedding, had become something else entirely. Each step sunk into a yielding mass that immediately hardened, teeth like projections rising to snag at my boots, tearing at the leather. The sensation wasn't pain, not initially. It was resistance, a deliberate obstruction, as if the stage itself had decided I wasn't meant to leave. The air, thick with the scent of ozone, and something akin to burnt sugar, pressed against my lungs, each breath a struggle. I could taste it, a metallic tang coating my tongue, the phantom flavor of old blood, then the hand. Again. The copy standing impossibly still, its face a perfect, horrifying mirror of my own, reached for my ankle. Not a grab, not a clumsy attempt at restraint. It was a deliberate clasp, the fingers tightening with a slow, agonizing pressure. The bone white and shadow purple light from the runes seemed to focus on that point of contact, intensifying the feeling of violation. This wasn't about stopping me. It was about twin claiming me, about asserting ownership I scavenged from the rusted pipe, scavenged from the ruins of the old generator shed with everything I had. It connected with the copy's chest, the impact sending a shudder through my arm. But instead of flesh and bone yielding, there was a bloom of static, a digital unraveling. The copy didn't scream, didn't flinch, it simply fragmented. Pieces of its form dissolved into flickering pixels. Like a corrupted file, the edges dissolving into trails of black and bone white. The smell of ozone intensified, now laced with the acrid scent of burning electronics. The digital fizzle was not a sound, but a fight texture against my eardrums. The cat's tail, a smooth, cool weight in the air, completed its arc. It drew a perfect circle around my foot, the runes pulsing with a frantic energy. The rhythm was accelerating, becoming almost unbearable. It felt like a countdown, a prelude to something catastrophic. The air crackled, and the scent of wet metal became overwhelming. My vision blurred at the edges, the stage tilting precariously. My thoughts felt distant, disconnected, as if I were observing myself from a great distance, a passive spectator in my own unraveling. The copy's hand, even as its body dissolved, held fast to my ankle. The pressure increased, a vice-like grip that threatened to crush the bone. It wasn't strength, but persistence. A cold, unwavering determination to hold on, to fully become me. I tried to pull away, to wrench my foot free, but it was useless. The hay teeth tightened their grip, and the dissolving copy's hand refused to relinquish its hold. The runes on the cat's tail flared, bathing the stage in an unearthly glow. The circle completed, and a wave of energy surged through my body, a cold fire that burned without consuming. The copy's hand squeezed, not a violent jerk, but a slow, deliberate compression, a grinding pressure that sent shards of pain shooting up my leg, and then a realization. The hay wasn't holding Twine my prisoner, it was holding Twent it prisoner. The stage wasn't trying to prevent my escape. It was containing the disintegration. The cat wasn't a gatekeeper. It was an architect, meticulously constructing a cage, and I was the one who had built it. I run for the exit, my boots tearing through the hay with a wet shriek, each step a struggle against the unseen resistance. The fog swells around me, its tendrils reaching out like fingers grasping at my ankles before dissipating into nothingness. It is as if the very air is trying to hold me back, but I push forward, driven by an instinctual need to escape this place. The cat stops just short of the exit, turning its faceless head towards me. Its surface reflects my face, or what remains of it. My skin seems to ripple with digital glitches, pixels bleeding from my eyes like tears made of code. The reflection blinks at me, and I feel a cold dread wash over me as my real eyes mirror the action, plunging into darkness. The fog in front of me begins to coalesce, taking shape with an unsettling purpose. It forms a scene that makes my heart seize. A funeral. My funeral! A body lies still on the stage, shrouded in hay like some macabre parody of a bridal gown. The toy creak echoes through the theater again, stretching into a scream this time, resonating off the walls with an unnatural vibration that sets my teeth on edge. The taste of shattered glass fills my mouth, the dust of decay clinging to my tongue as I breathe in deeply, trying to steady myself against the overwhelming sensory assault. The air here is thick not just with fog but with a palpable tension like the charged atmosphere before a storm breaks. I reach out towards the cat, meaning to push past it, and escape through the shimmering doorway behind, but my hand passes through its formless face without resistance, as if I'm reaching into nothingness. There is no texture beneath my fingertips, just an empty void that seems to suck at my skin like a vacuum. The runes on the cat's tail pulse with a rhythmic intensity, now casting everything in their eerie glow of bone white and shadow purple. It feels like they're counting down to something catastrophic, each flash bringing me one step closer to whatever horror awaits beyond this threshold. My thoughts race, fragmented and incoherent, as I try to make sense of what is happening around me. The cat turns back towards the exit, its tail tracing a precise circle in midair before freezing abruptly. It feels like it is drawing something, a sigil perhaps, or maybe just writing my name on fate's ledger. The hay dust tastes bitter now, laced with an acrid tang that burns my throat and leaves me coughing spasmodically. Each breath is becoming more difficult as the air grows heavier, pressing down upon me like a physical weight. And then suddenly, everything stops. The pulsing of the runes, the creaking of the toy, even time itself seems to freeze around us. The cat's tail completes its final stroke with deliberate precision before lowering slowly towards my foot, tracing an intricate pattern onto the stage floor that I can't help but feel is a seal being set upon me. As the needle drops on some unseen vinyl record, the sound echoing through the theater like thunder, the world turns black and bone white once more, and in those final moments of clarity before everything goes dark for good, I realize this was never about escaping through the gatekeeper, but becoming one with it. My hand moves towards the cat's runes, drawn to them as if by some invisible force. They pulse beneath my fingertips, cold and unyielding like tracing braille on a tombstone. The air around us seems to hold its breath, waiting for me to complete this ritual that feels both profane and sacred. I trace the drawing with deliberate slowness, each line etched into my memory from watching the cat's tail write it out earlier. It is an intricate sigil, reminiscent of a circuit board schematic or perhaps some ancient language forgotten by time. As I finish tracing the last curve, there is a sudden shift in the atmosphere, a pressure building like static before lightning strikes. The exit behind the cat begins to open with agonizing slowness, as if being peeled apart from within. The hay rustles and whispers, parting to reveal not a stage floor but an abyss of obsidian blackness that seems to swallow all light and hope. But there is no time for awe or fear. I lunge forward, reaching out for the cat. Its tail whips across the threshold just as my fingers brush against its furless face. The runes flash brighter than ever before, casting harsh shadows on the hay stage. They write something in midair, a message formed of digital beeps that echo like gunshots through this cathedral of silence. You are the parasite. The needle drop comes then, the sharp click resonating from every corner of the theater like a cannonball fired into an empty vault. Time seems to freeze around us, each second stretching out eternally as I stare at those accusing words hanging before me. Then everything happens at once. The cat jumps backwards through the exit, its tail pointing directly at my face. The runes on its body flash one last time before going dark forever, and the exit slams shut with a finality that echoes like thunder. My hand stiffens, where it was reaching for the cat, held there by some unseen force as if encased in concrete. And then darkness claims me completely, a blackness so absolute it is almost tangible, pressing down upon my skin like a physical weight. I can't see anything. Not even those white runes that once illuminated this world. But somehow, I know they're now etched onto Huimi's skin too, and with them comes an understanding far deeper and more terrifying than any realization could ever be. I am the parasite. I scream. My voice fractures like glass shattering against concrete. It is not the cry of a man, nor even an animal. It is raw data, corrupted code vomiting forth from my throat in jagged chunks. The cat's runes flash on my skin, a digital pulse that matches my heartbeat perfectly. Too perfect, and for a moment, I'm convinced they're writing something new onto me. The world blurs into monochrome static as the scream tears through it. My vision flickers between black and bone, white, like an old television struggling with reception. The hay stage swallows everything. The cat, my hands reaching out towards it, even myself reflected in its digital eyes, and I'm left adrift amidst a sea of dried grass stalks. There is movement within the fog that has taken shape around me. My funeral, they said. But now it feels more like an awakening. The fog writhes and churns as if alive, forming silhouettes of familiar faces who've long since departed this world, my parents, their eyes hollow voids, old friends whose laughter echoes emptily through the haze. And there I am too, a digital copy wiping its face with non-existent hands. Its movements are jerky, like stop-motion animation played at half speed. It mimics me perfectly, the way I scratch behind an ear when I'm nervous, how my mouth twitches up on one side when I smile. But it is wrong somehow. Off. The candle in my hand flickers wildly as if caught in a sudden gust of wind, even though the air around us is still. Its flame stretches and distorts into something unnatural, a living thing thrashing against its constraints, desperate to escape. Wax drips down onto my fingers, cold and sticky like congealed blood. I watch myself watching this other. Me wipe away tears that aren't there while simultaneously feeling those same non-existent tears slide down my own cheeks. The sensation is disorienting. It is as though I'm being stretched thin, pulled apart at the seams by opposing forces determined to tear me in two. My hand drops the candle without conscious thought, the muscles spasming uncontrollably, as if some unseen puppeteer has cut its strings. It lands amongst the hay with a soft thud that echoes like thunder through this cathedral of silence. The flames recede into the dried grass, swallowed whole by its insatiable appetite for light. The toy creak stretches out, an eternal unnatural groan that seems to bend time itself around it, and then finally mercifully stops. Silence descends once more, but now it is filled with a new tension, a waiting game played between predator and prey where neither knows who is the hunter anymore. I stare at my hands. They're shaking violently as if each finger has developed its own mind, while trying to reconcile what I've just seen. Myself wiping away tears that weren't there. Was it grief? Fear? Both? The hay stage squelches wetly beneath me like a mouth full of rotten teeth chewing thoughtfully on this new revelation. It swallows my candle flame whole and leaves behind only darkness, a blackness so absolute it is almost tangible, pressing down upon my skin like a physical weight. And somewhere within that darkness, something moves, an unseen force, shifting through the shadows, drawing ever closer until all I can feel is its cold breath on my neck. It whispers words long forgotten yet somehow familiar, the language of machines written in code only they understand, and with each syllable spoken, those bone-white runes etched onto my skin begin to glow brighter still. I am not alone here, not by a long shot, but whether this presence means salvation or damnation remains to be seen. Either way, I know one thing for certain, whatever happens next won't happen quietly. Not in this theater filled with echoes of the past and promises yet unkept. My shadow detaches completely. Not a smudge, not a ripple, just a clean severance where my foot met the hay stage. It stands there, a perfect silhouette of my body in that monochrome void, then begins walking. It walks toward the television screen, its movement unnervingly smooth, gliding over the dried grass stalks without disturbing a single one. I watch it go, my own body stiff as a corpse in a coffin, muscles locked against the sheer impossibility of it. The air tastes like cold metal and old blood, thick enough to choke on. The television screen flickers, showing my funeral, my own face, pale and still, lying in a coffin beneath a flickering candle. The cat sits motionless on the stage, its faceless head tilted. Its tail lifts, a slow, deliberate sweep, tracing lines in the air above the hay, not drawing, writing pruy. The lines coalesce into the sharp angles of my bedroom window, the jagged edge of my desk, the glow of my old laptop screen, all rendered in the same bone, white and black. My digital room, the cat is building it from nothing, stitch by stitch, with the slow, deliberate motion of a spider weaving a web of code. The toy creak begins. Not a sound from the stage, but from Fu inside. My skull, a deep, resonant groan that starts in my molars and vibrates up through my jawbone. It's the sound of ancient wood splitting under impossible pressure, stretched beyond its limits. It's not outside. It's within, the sound of my own skeleton protesting the unnatural. It swells, drowning out the wind that had been whispering through the mountain pines. The rustle of the hay. The creak doesn't just fill the space, it fills me, a physical pressure behind my eyes. My vision fractures again, black and bone, white shards scattering like broken glass. The candle's wax on my fingers feels like congealed rain, cold and heavy. I try to move my hand, to stop the shadow, but my fingers remain paralyzed, twitching with the rhythm of the creak. The needle drop hits. Not a sound, but a thud in my chest cavity, a physical impact that makes my ribs crack. It's the final sharp note of a record skipping. The moment the needle settles, the silence that follows the scream, the creak stops. The silence is absolute, yet it's filled with the echo of that final thud. The cat's tail stops tracing. It lowers slowly, deliberately, and points directly at my face. Not at my eyes, but at the space where my eyes should be. I feel the point of it like a physical pressure, a cold, precise needle of focus. My own reflection in the dead television screen flickers. My digital copy, the one who wiped away non-existent tears, now staring back with hollow sockets. Its mouth moves, forming the words I'm screaming inside my own head. You are the parasite. The runes on my skin flare, not with light, but with a sudden, deep cold that spreads from my wrists up my arms like liquid nitrogen seeping into my veins. It's the cold of the mountain at midnight, the cold of a tomb sealed for centuries. I feel the digital copy's presence in the silence, not as a separate entity, but as a reality I've been inhabiting all along. The hay beneath me isn't just dry, it's the desiccated skin of something vast and dead, cracking under my weight. Each stalk feels like a brittle bone. The cat's tail remains pointed. I try to look away, to see the stage, the television, the hay, but my eyes are fixed on that single point of focus, the tail, the point, the shrund. The world doesn't blur, it te resolve. Every detail sharpens in the black and bone white. The precise angle of a haystalk, caught in the weak light of the dead TV. The tiny, almost invisible dust mote suspended in the air. The exact texture of the wax on my fingers, rough like dried blood. The digital copy in the screen mimics my own movement, a slight tilt of the head, a micro twitch of the jaw. It's not mimicking me. It's Tuan Mei, the version that was always here. The one who was never real. The cat's runes pulse against my skin, not in rhythm with my heartbeat, but with the thud of the needle drop. The cold spreads to my throat, making it impossible to breathe. I feel the parasite, whine in the silence, in the cold in the point of the cat's tail. The hay stage squelches wetly under my feet, not with moisture, but with the sensation of something sucking. The life from me, drawing me into the digital room the cat is drawing. The cat doesn't blink, its faceless surface is smooth, a flat plane of fur where a face should be. Its tail points. It doesn't need to say it. The revelation is the only sound left. The only thing left. The cat's tail points at my face.